Good morning. My name is Don Michaelman, and I want to welcome you to the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for November 14th on that. I don't see any special members from the City Council here yet. So if you could check your phones and make sure they're on mute or off, I would appreciate it there on it. This is an open public hearing and is being taped. Well, I tell you what, let's introduce the commission members first. Jim?
Good morning, everybody. Welcome. My name is James Klazuski.
Good morning. I'm Tom Hutchison. Welcome.
Good morning. I'm Susan Graham.
Good morning, Tom Riley.
Good morning, Tom Davis.
Good morning, Jim Whiting.
If you notice, you almost have to be named Tom or Jim to be on the commission on that, but we work with it there.
Thank you.
So this is an open public hearing and is being videotaped by the city. The proceedings are being televised by representatives of the public media. Whoops.
They sat in the wrong seats.
This is going to be a long meeting. The public, local cable and or radio stations, and may also be rebroadcast. The number of commission members present is 7. It will require a majority vote of those present to pass a motion. Members of the public, when called upon, are required to state their name and address for the record so that we may know who is speaking and be able to contact them later at a later date if necessary. The first item on the agenda is the minutes for the October 10th, 2024 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Before we do that, Jacob pointed out to me we had a little correction we had to make. James Whiting was excused from the meeting. He wasn't absent AWOL and so forth on that. Okay? So, are there any corrections to the minutes? If no corrections, is there a motion?
Move to approve, Tom Riley.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Susan Graham, I'll second.
We have a motion to approve and a second. Any further discussion? Jacob?
Commissioner Davis?
Oh, sorry. The me? I'm going to abstain.
Commissioner Whiting?
I will also abstain since I was not here.
Commissioner Graham?
Approve.
Commissioner Klazuski?
I have to abstain. I was not at the meeting last time.
Commissioner Hutchinson?
I'm going to approve it.
Vice Chair Riley?
Approve.
And Chair Michaelman?
I think I'll approve it too then, okay? Next item up is SUP 24-001, a request for a special use permit to allow for construction of a building exceeding 10,000 square feet in the downtown business district at 201 South Cortez Street as a replacement of the old City Hall building. Chelsea.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commission, good morning. Chelsea Walton, Community Development Director, and I'll be taking you through this item today. So as the chair mentioned, this is a special use permit, SUP 24-001, for the old City Hall location. The location is at the southeast corner of East Goodwin and South Cortez, and it spans a couple of parcels there, highlighted for you in red on the screen. The compiled acreage is 1.3 acres. This SUP is a little different than what you typically see. This SUP is required by our land development code for larger floor area projects in the downtown business district. And this one in particular is a new structure that is 10,000 square feet or larger. There's 2 other criteria, but this is what it falls under.
Chelsea, how much bigger is it than 10,000 square feet?
I do not have that in my notes, but the applicant is here and can answer that question during his presentation. Thank you. So the downtown business district covers a larger area of downtown than local preservation historic districts. There are two types of historic districts. One is the National Register and the other is local preservation. So the local preservation, which this falls within, requires a Prescott Preservation Commission approval. And this project earlier this year went through the local preservation district. It falls within the Courthouse Plaza district, and it received the Prescott Preservation Commission approval at their September 13th meeting. So what's before you today, as I mentioned, in the Land Development Code, it's the role of the Planning and Zoning Commission for this project to evaluate the proposed building design based on the recommendation of the Prescott Preservation Commission, and then forward that recommendation on to the council. And that particular provision in the code reads thus: so upon reliance of the compatibility review criteria, which we'll go through in a moment, the Preservation Commission shall provide its determination to Planning and Zoning as to the development's proposal's consistency with the guidelines, which we'll go over. The Planning and Zoning Commission shall review such determination and make its recommendation to the City Council. And then the City Council will approve or deny the development proposal. So based on compatibility with the Courthouse Plaza Preservation District guidelines, which all of the four compatibility criteria fall within, the design was approved, as I mentioned earlier, by Historic Preservation. So those four criteria from the Land Development Code are: the construction and exterior building materials shall be high quality and long lasting. Structures shall demonstrate general principles of good design. And it gives, I'm not going to read the entire slide, there's a lot of verbiage up there, but it goes through building materials, the structure itself, the design, architectural components, and then the screening of rooftop mechanical, or I'm sorry, not just rooftop, but all mechanical equipment being screened. So those are the four criteria that are listed for this type of review in the Land Development Code under the Downtown Business District for the special use permit process. So to go over, here is a rendering, and thanks to the developer and his design team for putting the rendering in line with the existing business, the existing post office building. It kind of really gives a good perspective. So this is if you're standing kind of in the middle of the street on Goodwin, looking southeast. Here's a rendering on Cortez, just south of the intersection at Goodwin. And here are those building materials that were approved in the design by the Prescott Preservation Commission. And these are where those exterior building materials can be found on the project. So that concludes my presentation. The recommended action is moved to recommend approval of this project. Any questions, Commission?
Any questions for staff? Tom?
Chelsea, you mentioned that we're to review this in regard to the Preservation Committee's recommendations. Are we limited to that?
That is what is in the code that you're reviewing. So
I'll answer that as
thank
the
you.
attorney for the board. Yes, you're limited to what's in the code. Yes, you are limited to what is in the code. So what you'll be looking at for your compatibility review guidelines is found in section 4.9.4B. And that was the four things that Chelsea listed. The first one is you're going to look at it for construction and exterior building materials shall be of high quality and long lasting. That's review criteria 1. Number 2, structure shall demonstrate the general principles of good design, including but not limited to those dealing with form, mass, scale, height, texture, and color. Specific consideration shall be given to compatibility with other like structures in the vicinity where such structures are substantially in compliance with this land development code. The third one that you'll be looking at is the architectural design of structures and their materials and colors shall be visually harmonious with the overall appearance, history, cultural heritage of downtown Prescott. Generous use of architectural interest elements is encouraged. And the fourth one is the mechanical screening from view in accordance with another section of the code 6.5.8E. And then it refers back to the special use permit process found in section 9.9, which basically is this is a review body that'll make a recommendation to the city council whether or not the special use permit is granted. But I wouldn't go beyond the scope of the authority that you have in making your determination based on that compatibility review guideline.
And just to quickly add that the Prescott Preservation Commission review is also what you're looking at, based on the code's statement that the Planning and Zoning Commission shall review such determination made by preservation and then make the recommendation to City Council.
I'm trying to get clarity over what exactly you want us to do. And it sounds like you want us to check the Historic Preservation Committee's work.
That's what I read in the code.
I think that's a good way of putting it. You're kind of a review body. Did preservation kind of get it right? Are there any concerns that you have that you want the council to be aware of?
Yeah, and I wasn't here when the code was written, but I can understand why in the downtown business district, a building and project of this size, there was a desire to see more eyes on it, more public process around it, which is why I think this code was written the way it was, just to put it in front of more public bodies, perhaps, and just to make sure there was opportunity for the public to hear the project as it moves through the process. So yes, it is going back to preservation and making sure you agree with their determination.
Other questions for staff? Would the applicant like to address the commission?
Wonderful. And he has a slide PowerPoint, so I'll ask IT to go ahead and put that up for him.
Okay.
Thank you, Chelsea, and good morning, commissioners. Off to a good start today. Thanks for letting me address you this morning. My name's Shane Shumway. I am president of Whiting Brothers Investment Company. We are the managing partner of Territory Holdings. And I'm excited to discuss further with you the project. I don't want to take too much of your time, so I'll try to run through it fairly quickly. I did want to give a brief overview of just the process that we've already gone through to get to the point that we're at here. And I believe this is either our 7th or 8th public meeting now on this project. We did several meetings with the Heritage Preservation Commission. As part of those meetings, we didn't just do one redesign of the project. We did 2 redesigns of the project, and that second redesign was actually a complete redesign of the project from our initial concept. Our initial concept was about 120,000 square foot building, but as part of the redesign, we eliminated close to 40,000 square feet of that. We're at about 75,000 square feet to answer the question on square footage. Before I discuss more about that process, I wanted to just discuss a bit more the site and the history of the site. Before this site was City Hall, it was called Howie Hall. And Mr. Howie built this structure at that site. He originally envisioned a hotel at this location. It had a porch, a little sort of outside deck that you can see there. But this turned into a place that was used to hold dances and banquets, political gatherings, and other meetings. The upper floor also included some additional meeting space. You see that little second floor balcony up there. There's a part of that design that we're using down on the first floor. This is obviously the current City Hall. This was built in, I believe, the 1970s? 1960s. Okay, so this replaced that, and obviously, as everyone's aware, the city is vacating these premises as they move over here. As we looked for design guidelines as we were working with the Preservation Commission, these are all images of downtown Prescott. Obviously, there's a lot of brick and stone that's used. It's traditional architecture, traditional parapets and cornices, and you'll see how we implemented that into our design. As we worked with the Historic Preservation Commission, there were kind of three main concerns that they had. One was the height of our original proposal. Second was the massing of it. And then third was the material usage. We were using more EFIS in our original design, or as the more pejorative term people try to use with that material is stucco. I prefer the use of EFIS, but we basically eliminated the use of EFIS. So with respect to those three things, height, our original design height was at 55 feet, and the guidelines contemplate 48 feet, and in the redesign, we were able to accomplish getting that below that 48 feet. The second major concern of massing, we broke up the building basically to give it three separate styles that you'll see in the design. And then third, materials, as I've already mentioned, it's all brick and stone, consistent with the guidelines. First, with respect to height, this is just a outline of the height of other buildings in this area. Obviously, we're right next to the historic post office building. As you can see on this image, the height of that building is 49 feet, so they're a little bit above that 48-foot threshold. The courthouse is 67 feet, so we're a good 19 feet below that. And then you can see some of the other structures surrounding this as well. So this is now our project that was approved. One thing that I'm proud of is we were able to receive unanimous approval by the commission. I'm proud of that because I don't feel like that was an easy thing to do. But going back to kind of those four areas based on the code that we're reviewing, review of materials, again, this is going to be a beautiful building built with high quality materials. Obviously brick and stone is, it's a costly material to use, but this is all brick and stone at this point. We broke up the building in terms of massing. You can kind of see, I have another slide here that shows kind of how it fits in with the surrounding areas. I believe the architect has done a really wonderful job in incorporating the not just the guidelines, but the other buildings around, and kind of bringing that into to this building. So with that said, I'm happy to answer questions if there are any. If not, I'm also happy to sit down.
Questions for the applicant? Tom?
Yeah, I have a question. Do you have a slide for the showing where the parking is?
So do we have the agenda packet available?
I don't think we have that in the folder.
So Do you each have your agenda?
Well, if I
packet?
remember correctly, that you're providing 109 parking spaces, something in that vicinity.
I believe it's 114.
Okay.
Which will more than adequately park.
Is any of that parking public parking?
So we haven't thought about the use in terms of it being public parking. I guess our perspective is that the city built a fairly large parking structure a block away that accomplishes public parking. So maybe you can give me more feedback on.
Well, just that during times downtown when we have special occasions, which is weekends, days off, things like that, we usually have something going on in the downtown area. The current 60 some odd parking spaces that are in City Hall are used as public parking. And those are going away because of this, is my understanding.
Yeah, so we're actually providing 114 more parking spaces than are required under the code. So,
Well, I get that, and that's just for your use, so the building's use.
yeah, I mean, obviously.
So it's not public.
It's not public, right? I mean, we have to park the individuals that come.
So one of the things we are going to, just so the commission knows, we're going to be losing over 60 public parking spaces in the downtown. Just matter of fact, that's all.
Yeah, a couple of comments to that, though. I think that there is an opportunity for both peak and off-peak parking. So one of the things that's nice about hotel use is generally you need parking at night, but during the day it can be used for other parking. Like, for example, at the Hilton Garden Inn, right, we paid for 50% of the cost of that splash pad. And now the public comes and parks at the Hilton Garden Inn and goes and uses the splash pad. Did we ever say that, hey, we're just going to provide this for public parking? No, we didn't, but we are doing that there. I want to make another comment too. Your code actually says there is 0 parking required at this development. So we are providing 114 more parking spaces than what your code requires.
Mm-hmm. Very good. And I did find those site plans on page 15 and 16 of your packets.
But the site plans show 109 parking spaces versus 114.
I believe, yeah, I'd have to go back and count. It's 109 or 114, but yeah.
Other questions for the applicant?
Yeah, I need Tom Hutchison. For clarification, tell me again how many square feet this building is?
It's right at 75,000. 75,000.
So, Chelsea, if it's 75,000 and 10,000 is a limit for a special use permit, so it's over 10,000, you need a special use permit.
The 10,000 is not a limit. It's 10,000 square feet and larger triggers the SUP process. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Jim?
Jim Kloszewski, Commissioner. A question I have is, the original plan didn't call for underground parking originally?
Yeah, so it did call for underground. It was, I wouldn't call it underground. It was halfway underground because the site is sloped. Yeah.
Is that still the plan?
So there will be a smaller parking deck that's part of this in order to get to that 109. And building that parking deck is extraordinarily expensive. But yes, I mean, there still will be a parking deck that is driven under.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Tom Davis, just follow up on the parking. Could you show us on one of these elevations where the parking starts and where it ends?
So further down Cortez, there will be an entrance to the parking that wraps around on the east side of the building. So the parking is on the back side because under the historic guidelines, the building has to be up front along the property line. So the parking is on the other side of the building.
So your renderings do not show where that entrance is, though, does it?
It's just to that side.
But so on this particular rendering that's up on the screen, is behind that facade, this is the Cortez facade, correct? Mm-hmm. Behind that Cortez facade and that part of the building, at the lower level, that's not parking. What you're saying,
No,
that's
there-
not
there's no
parking.
parking underneath.
Parking is behind there.
Parking's behind
Okay,
there.
and what is going on right there in front of the parking on the Cortez side? Is that shops or hotel?
Yeah, so part of it is meeting space. So on this side, it's meeting space and then hotel lobby. So is there a laser
It's the shadow.
top thing?
Yeah. There we go.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if I can get this to work. All right, so this part, that's meeting space. This will be hotel lobby and restaurant. And then on the other side, as it wraps around, so that's restaurant right there, and then on this lower level floor up here is retail space.
Could you take your device there and go all the way to the right?
With the shadow?
Yeah, with the shadow. Keep on going. Right there. Is that the entrance of the parking then?
Yes.
Okay. Further questions?
Yeah, I have a couple. Could you, number one, an easy one, have you considered electrical vehicle charging?
There will be electrical vehicle charging here.
And how about handicap parking?
There will be handicap parking.
Okay. Second question is, what is the front of the building? Can you show me the front of the building?
The front from which elevation?
Just for setback purposes, what is the front of the building?
Chelsea, do you?
So
Yeah, there aren't any setbacks required it's 0 for the downtown business district. So that's on all sides.
thank you.
Yes.
Further questions? Could I ask, what do you estimate as your average occupancy in the hotel? If you're looking at 114 rooms or 109, whatever it is,
Yeah, so between 70 and 75 average.
when would you expect that the guests that come to the restaurant who are not staying in the hotel or to the shops to park in the parking area too, or would they be encouraged to park in the street?
We'll have sufficient parking to park them on site.
Chair, if I could just point out real quickly, we do have members of the Preservation Commission here, if any of the commission has questions for them.
Okay, thank you. Jim.
I have a comment about the park. I looked at that very hard to try to figure out what the different levels of parking were. And I see there's quite a few spaces that are accessed from the alley. And those seem to be separate from the other parking areas. In other words, they're kind of adjacent to them, but they're separated. In other words, you can't drive between those. Could those spaces, and I don't remember, there's not a lot of them, but I mean, could they be designated as public parking? Because that would be easy access for people to get in and out with the alley and not.
Yeah, I mean, this could be a good question for City Council because the cost of the property is $2.2 million. And so if we're all of a sudden being asked to now provide public parking, the cost of the property is going to go down. Also, I'm not sure that the code requires parking. I mean, the code actually requires 0. And maybe, Mr. Podracki, you can help with this. I'm not sure parking is part of this review.
Correct. I mean, it's not.
Right. It's not contained in the review criteria.
So again, we're happy to discuss that item with council, but it's not part of this review. And again, if it's public parking, again, a public use causes the value of the land to go down. So that would need to be another consideration as well.
Absolutely. And it is confirmed that for this use, for all of the uses contained in this mixed use project, that 0 parking is required per the code.
Chelsea, Tom Hutchison again.
Yes, sir.
Is a special use permit considered kind of like a zoning variance, land development code variance.
No, the code requires a special use permit under certain conditions. For instance, if this particular project were going above the height, then the code says a special use permit would be required to approve anything above 50 and below 100. So it's just another provision that enables more discussion and review of those things. It's not necessarily a variance, it's just an extra process. And I would invite legal if that's not a clear enough perspective of what a special use does.
Yeah, I can just read the definition in the code. In 9.9.2 on the applicability of a special use, that special uses may be complementary to those uses permitted by right in a zoning district, but require individual review of their location, design, configuration, density, and intensity, and may require the imposition of additional conditions in order to ensure the appropriateness and compatibility of the use at a particular location. So not quite a variance. It's assumed that, the use is generally permitted, but it may have some special conditions. In this particular one, because we're in a historic district, there's this extra layer of protection and review. It's a check and balance.
Mm-hmm. It's the downtown business district.
DTB,
yeah.
Sorry. So, and the purpose of a special use permit, according to the code, it says special uses are uses that may be permitted subject to the granting of a special use permit because of area impacts or special characteristics, which is the DTB of the use. Special uses require additional consideration so that they may be located with respect to the objectives of this code and their effect on surrounding properties and or meet citywide goals relating to the general plan. So, a variance is more of a highly technical sort of, really it's a legal determination by a board of adjustment generally, where it considers facts and legal issues. Here, what we're looking at is kind of a review back to that section 4 of the code of the Planning and Zoning Commission based on those 4 review criteria. So I don't know if that answers the question or not, but
yes, it did.
Not quite a variance.
Yeah.
So it's something less technical.
Any further questions for the applicant? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Do we have anybody from the public who wants to speak?
I did not receive any speaker requests.
Okay.
I think it would probably be an idea. Then there are forms in the back table that you need to fill out your name and stuff like that. If you would get those forms, fill them out, and bring them up to the guy sitting on the very end over there, then we can keep this whole thing legal and straightforward.
And we don't charge any fees.
Until you leave.
Mr. Chairman, would it be appropriate for one of the Preservation Commission members to speak at this time?
IT, would you please put up the first presentation? Was there a request to have one of the Preservation Commission members speak?
If they would like to speak and they want to fill out a form and bring it up so we can keep track of who is talking.
And if they don't want to talk, that's okay too.
You're not required.
They've done a lot of talking on this project. I think they're good.
Jacob.
First speaker will be Mindy Sheld. Shebley, apologies.
Hi, my name is Mindy Shebley, and we live.
Could you get a little closer, please?
Sorry. We live just a couple blocks up the street on Goodwin, so obviously parking is a major concern of ours as well, but that has already been addressed. The other concern we have is the traffic on Goodwin has become very intense. We just had an accident on the corner of Alarcon and Goodwin just last week, and we would recommend to the council or to you to make that a four-way stop sign. We have children going to the library all the time. We have elderly people going into the library, and people go up Goodwin because they want to avoid Gurley, and they're hauling up the street very fast. And that's our recommendation.
Yeah, and we just had about 2 months ago, old man got run over just on Goodwin and Pleasant. He was just run over too, and he's dead. And the traffic's going to be an issue for that whole thing. So I don't know how that can be addressed. I mean, that's probably our big concern. Of course, parking is an issue too. That's always an issue downtown. So.
Well, I appreciate your comments there. I would recommend going to the city council because the council has more authority where the parking, for the stop sign and so
I don't know if
forth.
that get that fixed or not.
That's fine.
It's an issue for
All right,
us.
but thank you.
Okay.
Next speaker, we have Stephen Bagwell. Bagnall.
Yeah, Stephen Bagnall, 307 East Union, Prescott, Arizona. I've been here for over 40 years. I live downtown. My family lives up in San Luis Obispo, and several years ago, that's California, by the way, several years ago, there were two public parking spaces downtown, or public parking areas, I should say. And the city went ahead, and over X amount of years, they ended up selling those two different parcels to developers, and subsequently hotels have been built on those sites. And I go up there once a year, and after this happened, before it happened, there was parking everywhere, especially in those public spaces, and I used to use those public spaces. Now you go up there, they don't exist anymore. You drive around, sometimes you have to park 2 or 3 blocks away. And one of the arguments here is that, well, there's public parking over on Granite Street. Well, if you're looking to go to an event downtown, or even to go to the post office, as it is now, even you have to drive around and look for a space. But with a hotel where 60 parking spaces are being taken away, I could see this as public parking spaces. I could see how this could be a big problem. It really bothers me seeing what's happening to the downtown area in terms of traffic and just trying to maneuver in that area. Now, 2 different issues that I've heard here today was that the site, the issues of compatibility and area impact. Well, the way I see it, this project is not compatible to the site. And the reason is because you're taking away public parking. You're taking away 60 spaces and handing those basically to a developer who has no plans of making any of that parking public parking. So in that essence, the project, as I see it, is not compatible, and the area impact is obvious. It's going to impact the area in a negative way because more people are going to be coming. They're going to be coming to the hotel. They're going to be coming to the restaurant, the shops, and everything else. A lot of out-of-towners, especially on the weekends, and it's just going to create more of a nightmarish problem for the downtown area. So that's my opinion.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else?
No, that was the last one.
Jim?
I don't know if this is out of line, but I'm just wondering if anybody else that's here from the public would like to hear from the Preservation Committee or not. Is that a request that I can make for a show of hands?
Sure, if that's something you're interested in asking. By a show of hands, anybody in the public want to hear from the preservation? There's a hand.
424 South Cortez, Mike Baumgarten. I think, without putting him on the spot, if he's not ready, then that's cool too. But if you have, it's up to you, sir.
Come on, Mike. Come on up and tell us what you guys were thinking.
My name is Michael King. I'm here today as a citizen, but I also have another role as Vice Chairman of the Preservation Commission. I would like to address the concern from the back of the room. My head was, we'd like to hear about what?
What do you got to say?
Well, okay. I can go, we did, how many meetings did I hear, Mr. Shumway? We had 8 or 9 meetings. Several of those we were all there. We heard lots of information, lots of requests for information and from the proponent. We voted 6-0 to accept, after the modification, the plans that you see before you, the visuals that you see of what's there. Our purview is, again, about historical preservation, architectural features, size, mass, and location as it relates to the neighboring buildings. Our purview is not about parking. It's not about traffic flow. We are trying to, our people say, stay in your lane. Our role was historical preservation and the setting and the architecture materials and the things that we are within our purview. Lots of iteration. While some of our people, members of our commission, had the same concerns you did about parking, about Mr. Riley has mentioned that we're losing some public parking, but also the proponent, because of the code, says you can build what you want there, and you don't have to. You don't have to provide parking for that particular site and location. So if we'd have gone something bigger or more expensive, we would not have the building we have today, the thing that we approved. So we had some of the same concerns, but we stayed within our purview, within our decision making. I can understand as a citizen, as a person goes downtown, spend a lot of time downtown. I'm a historical guide for the walking tours for the city. And so people come to town, they're looking for a setting, a place that makes Prescott what it is today. I do see over my 29 years here an increase in traffic. That's not about the downtown. That's about the size of our city. I moved here 29 years ago, it was 25,000. There's 40,000, 50,000 now. Those people want to come downtown. And then what is our major industry? Tourism. Where do they want to go? They want to go downtown. Some of the locals, I hear it all the time. I don't go there anymore. Like Yogi Bear says, it's too crowded. It's too crowded. Nobody goes there anymore. But that's our attribute. That's what our thing is. We have to be, it's not the way it was 25 years ago when it comes to parking. But still, we look for vibrant businesses. If you go back to the prospectus about why Mr. Shumway is here, why is he here? Because the city council of the time put out a prospectus and asked for a multi-service kind of building with retail and different ways to generate a sense of economic. Historical preservation was not in the prospectus. That's why we had to work so hard through it. So we were 6-0. We stayed in our lane, as you would say. We think the building is attractive in its way. It's going to cause some other effects. You're there to look at that. So is the city council. Any questions for me?
No,
Sure.
6-0 vote. Great. That's all I needed to hear. Yeah. And if I'm behind on meetings, I apologize. But thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I have a question for you. It's not a question, for clarification. So essentially your role was aesthetics driven.
I'm sorry, that word again?
essentially the role of the Historic Preservation Committee was essentially aesthetics driven.
Aesthetics?
Yes.
Not
How it
necessarily.
looked.
If you go to those two criteria that are in your code, that's number 2 and 3. We dealt with design, yes, but scale, mass, height, texture, color, architectural design of structures, visually harmonious. So that's where you see the aesthetic in there. You'll see the other aspects of, too, the things you're looking at. Height, scale, texture, and color. All of those things were part of our. But how does that architectural features fit into the rest of our community?
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is that how the building looked and looks was basically the main driving feature. And I'm struggling with basically disregarding some of the safety aspects that we're talking about here.
Sir, but that's not within our purview.
That's what I'm struggling with.
Yeah, I understand. So did we.
And
Absolutely, yeah.
And I'll just interject quickly that is within the purview of the city council, but per the code, it isn't within the purview of the boards and commissions relative to this item.
So, Chelsea, what you're asking us to do is rubber stamp this.
I'm not asking you to rubber stamp anything. I'm just asking to follow the land development code.
Well, you're asking us to approve it.
To recommend approval for consideration to council.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Chelsea, a clarification. Is the applicant required to have parking on site?
No.
So he is taking care of the parking needs of his business on site, not taking away any parking spaces in the street or requiring his tenants, or not tenants, but guests to park in the street.
He's providing on-site parking. I believe there will be a slight modification to street parking, but he is providing those 109 spaces for the use of his patrons.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that.
Could I make just a few more comments?
Sure.
First, I just want to say thank you for the comments that were made earlier. We, as someone who works in Prescott, operates a business in Prescott, issues related to public safety and welfare are important to us as well. And I think one consideration, just with respect to that, and I'm not sure that that's part of what you're being asked to review today, but a really important part of a downtown is the vitality and the vibrancy of the downtown. And that's a significant reason why we want to operate here in downtown Prescott, because of its vitality as the center of what is a city. And, I believe the alternate is that building is going to be vacated and sit vacated. And that also comes with issues related to public safety and welfare. And I think as a city, we're never going to fully eliminate issues related to safety. We're always going to need smart traffic laws and police departments and fire departments in order to facilitate the fact that we have a downtown and we live in a city. With respect to parking, I'm a bit surprised by this discussion today because I didn't anticipate this as part of the discussion, but just a couple more comments about that. The project that we're providing, we wanted to ensure that we would not increase a parking burden on anyone else, even though the code says we don't have to provide any parking. And that is what we're doing, is we're not increasing the parking burden on any other adjacent property owner either. And we could have said, look, we're not going to provide any public parking, because honestly, lots of downtowns their view now is that they're trying to get density as opposed to parking in downtown, and they're trying to get walkability as opposed to drivability. Nevertheless, we are providing that parking to ensure that we're meeting those obligations. And openly, I do believe that there will be opportunities, because we have both peak and off-peak demand, opportunities to engage in some sort of parking agreement of what that looks like. Now, again, we've never been asked to do this, so this is new to me. But anyway, just wanted to provide that perspective on those two things.
Thank you, sir. Let's move on to, is there a motion concerning this agenda item?
How about discussion amongst the members here? The public hearing closed?
Public hearing's closed.
Okay. Then
Open up for discussion. Do you want to start, Tom?
sure. The idea of, could you put up the criteria again? Thank you. The idea of a hotel downtown is a good idea. It's a great idea. And more shopping downtown, good idea. Great idea. Whether it's this corner or on Whiskey Row, the idea of a hotel downtown is smart. It's a tourist area. You should have hotels downtown. It's silly not to. When I look at this hotel, though, this project, it's massive. It's huge. And the massing of this project and me bothers me. It bothers me from a scale standpoint. I think that the materials that were chosen, good materials, better than the last group of materials that were there, but the mass, the scale are something that is something it bothers me. It is going to substantially impact the downtown area. This building is going to have a lasting impact in terms of other properties in the area. Other properties in the area, because of the mass and the size of this one, are going to try to do the same thing. They're going to try. It's not going to get smaller. It's going to get bigger, and it's going to get more dense. And this is one of the first projects of this scale to come in the downtown area ever. I think that the impact on surrounding areas is going to be significant. The cost, or I should say the value of property, which is not something that's in our purview, in the area is going to increase. And with that increase is going to become places like, by way of example, the Salvation Army. They're always looking to move someplace else if you just ask them. But that property is going to become very, very valuable. And I could ever see a building this massive going there as well. That is going to impact our downtown. It's not going to be the small little downtown anymore. And the idea of a hotel is a good one. I just think this one's just, the mass is off for me.
Anybody else want to comment? Jim?
Hello. Oh, sorry. Commissioner Riley said almost exactly what I was going to say. I think the use is excellent. It's an excellent use. It's better than a bank at the corner of Goodwin and Montezuma. And the problem I do have is the mass and the scale and the potential in and out traffic. I am not too concerned about taking away weekend parking, but I would hope that the council, further action by all parties, would consider an offset in some fashion. And I don't know what the solution is there, but my comments are exactly like Mr. Riley's.
Jim?
Little different perspective. When we say we don't have a project of this size in the downtown area, I do consider the Hilton as part of the downtown. And I assume, and you're the owner of the downtown of the Hilton, what's the mass of that building, square footage roughly? About the same. The statement I want to make regarding the size, the Historic Commission already significantly reduced the original size. For those that don't know, I am a realtor. I didn't spend my whole life as a real estate agent. I was in communications before that, but I do have a pretty good understanding of how hotels and what size they need to be in order to make a profit and keep from closing. I want to say I don't make a living off of representing any hotel owners here or anywhere else. I don't sell or buy hotels for people. But I do know that if you are undersized in terms of your room count based on your cost to produce the project, your occupancy rates are going to have to go up. And generally speaking, in most hotels, you're at a 65 to 70% just to break even. So my concern is if you downsize this hotel any smaller and you get well under 100 rooms, and I don't pretend I know the math because I don't know the pro forma of the hotel, but there's a good chance that you won't be able to profitably keep open a smaller hotel without having much higher room rates. And then we may find a building that becomes vacant in the future if it goes bankrupt. That's just my opinion.
Anybody else want to make a comment? Yep.
Well, I think the project is a very nice looking project. And one of the things that I don't disagree with the mass, but I mean, what I think they've done is divided it up into what looks like 3 buildings. And I know when I first looked at the rendering, I had to go look and said, do those other buildings already exist there? And so I thought that was a very good way to scale down the visual impact of that. And I mean, if you look at Whiskey Row, I mean, they're wall to wall, okay? So there's really no difference there. And I think that the architectural design goes with our downtown area. And I don't disagree that the town is changing, and we are a tourist town. And I think in the future there's going to be ways to move the tourists around where the parking won't necessarily be an issue. And I mean, there's ways to do that. But I think it's a great project, and I'm all for it. Thank you.
Normally, as a chair, I try not to make comments because I don't want to be perceived as trying to direct what the commission members should do. These commission members will not be directed anyway. They have their own independent thoughts on that. I have lived here with my wife for over 20 years and have seen how the downtown has changed. And that's not because new buildings were built there. It's because people come here, and there's a lot of people here. The city council has a very challenging job of how to control to be able to have a downtown area that is popular and have parking and being able to have people around there to come here to everybody's hometown. I think this project fits in, and I think the Preservation Commission did an excellent job, and they worked their tails off to do this. And I want to compliment the applicant for taking the patience to go through all this. There's not a lot of people that would sit through all these meetings to present them their ideas and their hopes and go back and make changes to try to match what the public wants on this. Not everybody's going to be happy with this, but I think it is a good fit for the downtown area. How it will affect the future, no one knows. It could be positive, could be negative, you don't know. You have to make a project fit what you think should be there. So that's just my thoughts. Do I hear a motion?
Can I weigh in here?
Okay, go ahead.
It was clearly explained to me what our role is here today. And I appreciate that. Thank you for that.
Susan, you want to?
I totally understand that parking is not within our purview. However, in order to have a vibrant downtown, you have to have more than just tourism. You also have to have the locals come in and support it. And with parking disappearing, especially with special events, the parking garage is often full. And my husband and I cannot go to a lot of the special events because of lack of parking, especially parking for handicap. And I hope that City Council will start to address some of these issues to keep our downtown area vibrant, not only for tourists, but also for the locals.
Any other comments? Is there a motion?
James Whiting, I move to recommend approval of SUP 24-001 for new construction at 201 South Cortez.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
James Klazuski, I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Jacob?
Commissioner Davis,
Aye.
Commissioner Whiting,
Approve.
Commissioner Graham,
Approve.
Commissioner Klazuski,
Approve.
Commissioner Hutchison,
Yeah, I approve.
Vice Chair Riley,
No.
and Chair Michaelman.
Approve.
Passes 6-1.
Okay. I want to thank all persons who attended here. We like to have the public come in. We like to have your input on this, and we appreciate you having an interest in what's occurring in your town on that. Are there any staff updates?
Not today, sir.
Then the meeting is adjourned.